Okay, everyone, it is so nice to have this opportunity to reconnect with Dr. Margaret Paul. And so I want all of you, because this is an important class, to start texting all your classmates and tagging them and calling them, letting them know that this is an important class today when it comes to finding who you are, reconnecting with yourself. So fasten your seatbelts because it's time to learn and grow and get in the moment through dance. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, back in 2001, in June, I made it sound like it was so far about, but June 2021, I took a class with Dr. Margaret Paul. As you know, she is co-creator of Inner Bonding. She's an author, and she is a therapist as well. And she co-created this work that was missing in her life. And because it was missing in her life, we all get to benefit. So this course that I took back in June was phenomenal. And there were two reasons why I wanted Dr. Paul to come back. One of them is to personally say, thank you for creating this work. Now that I've experienced it, it is phenomenal. Second, I wanted all of you who had not seen her work or were not part of that class to have an opportunity to revisit or to find it new so that you can make the choice to reconnect with your inner child. It's called Inner Bonding. And I first met Dr. Paul back in 2015. It was the only time we did a whole week of Dr. Paul on the radio. It was amazing. And back then I learned a lot, but now we're learning even more. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I'm grateful that Dr. Margaret Paul is here to do just that. Thank you so much, Dr. Paul, for the wonderful work that you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I'm happy to be here with you again.
Yes. Well, you know what? Until I went through the course, like I understood the concept, but to see you do this time and time and again and see the impact of each person that you touch was just truly, and I kept sending you messages because I was just truly amazed by this, because experiencing is different than knowing about it. So I want to thank you again and share a little bit about how this inner bonding, this inner knowing, this inner connection started with you.
Well, I think it started when I was a kid, and I was a miserable kid and in a dysfunctional family. And I was a real sensitive kid and always interested in understanding what was going on. When I was 5, my mother took me to a psychiatrist. She was a screamer, and I was a very nervous, unhappy kid. And he said to me, "Tell your mother not to yell at you." And I said, I thought, I didn't actually say out loud, I didn't have the confidence to do that then, but I thought, I'm only 5 years old and she's not going to listen to me. So you tell her. And my next thought was, I can do a better job than you. So I was headed for this. since I was young, but I practiced traditional psychotherapy for 17 years. I had tons of my own therapy, and I wasn't happy with any of it. And that's when I started to pray for a process, a teacher, something that would really work fast, work deep. And that's when I met Dr. Erica Chopich. She's the co-creator of Inner Bonding and my best friend. And she had half the process and I had half the process. And Spirit kind of came in and put it all together for us. And that was 37 years ago. So I've been teaching this process and practicing it all that time. And I'm just so gratified with the incredible results of this process all over the world now, because our books are all over the world. And I hear from people all the time that this is the missing piece. This is what they've been looking for. This is what they've needed to learn to heal their trauma, to learn to love themselves, to learn to share their love with others, to have loving relationships, to heal anxiety and depression and various addictions. So I love this process and I love sharing it.
Well, I tell you what, until I went through, I mean, I understood the concept of getting reconnected with your inner child, but to see that the process and you were modeling it with somebody else, it wasn't you talking about it and you also showing us how to do it. You were actually very in tune with what the other person was experiencing while you're still teaching us how inner bonding works. And by the way, this course is going to be available to all of you in the future. So if you're interested in it, email me and I'll connect you to the link, because we don't have the link just yet. And that's Lily@whenyouneedafriend.com. And so when you are done this for 37 years, Dr. Paul, do you feel that there is, are you shocked at all? Or do you feel, like if, like this is, when you see the results, when I say, are you shocked at all that somebody, that someone that you thought was unreachable, that someone that you thought that maybe not you, but they thought they were unreachable, unpenetrable, that they thought that they were, a lost cause, that with your process, they've been able to leaps and bounds connect with that pain within them and understand a little bit more of why they do what they do?
Yeah, well, at this point, I'm not shocked because I've been doing it for so long. And as you could see it on the course, I've also gotten really good at doing like laser 10, 15-minute sections and getting right down to the.
People want to tell you their story. People want to tell you their story, and the story doesn't really matter, does it?
And, well, a little bit.
A little bit, not the long.
No, not a big, long thing, just a few minutes. So I get where they've come from.
Yep.
Then I can dive right in and see what the bottom line is,
Absolutely.
Why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And that's very exciting to me that I have the ability to do that at this point. And that is because I have been practicing inner bonding for so long, which not only connects you to your inner child, which is the soul within you that communicates often through your feelings, but I also am connected with my higher self. Inner bonding teaches people how to do that. And when I work with people, maybe you could discern this, but when I work with people, I'm actually hearing from their higher. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of information coming in. Mm-hmm. And so I end up knowing things about them mm-hmm. that I would have no way of knowing without that higher input. So that's how I can do these laser sessions, because I'm getting so much information that I can go right down into the core. And one of the things with inner bonding that I think is really, really important for people to know, because a lot of people have a lot of trauma, whether it's overt physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or whether it's covert, whether it's neglect, whether it's, just a lot of yelling, a lot of criticism, parents not being around. Many of us suffered a lot as we were growing up. And that trauma enters into our relationships with others and gets triggered when somebody is angry or somebody withdraws or somebody's critical. It can trigger everything that we experience as children, and it triggers how we learn to react, which is generally not in a way that's loving to ourselves or others. So inner bonding is absolutely essential for healing trauma. There's many good trauma therapies that people need to do that help them on the physical level. The EMDR and EFT, the emotional freedom technique, and somatic experiencing, and TRE, which is trauma release exercises. There's others, and they're really, really helpful in releasing on the physical level the trauma. But if people keep treating themselves the way that they were treated, which is what everybody does, because that's what we learned, we continue to re-traumatize ourselves. And that's why it's so important to learn and practice inner bonding, because even if you don't think you had trauma, I've never worked with somebody that didn't have some rejection, didn't have various forms of abuse, didn't shut down or learn to get mad in response to other people's behavior, unloving behavior. And so, we perpetuate these unloving behaviors because we haven't learned what it means to love ourselves and share our love with others. And so as we keep on reacting in negative ways, judging ourselves and ignoring our feelings and numbing out with addictions and making other people responsible, blaming others, being a victim, we're re-traumatizing ourselves over and over again.
People don't understand that when we victimize ourselves, we are re-traumatizing ourselves. And I had Dr. John Gray. He's come into the classroom as well. And I learned that victimization has a benefit too. It releases endorphins, and it's like working out, you get those good feelings because people now feeling sorry for you, and that it can be addicted too. And I did not realize victimization is an addiction as well.
Yes, it is, because it gets you off the hook from having to take responsibility for yourself. And so if you can see yourself as a victim and be pathetic and cry or get mad or blame, then maybe you can get somebody else to feel sorry for you or give you the love temporarily for what you're not giving to yourself. And what people get addicted to is getting that attention. It's not the victim place itself, but it's the getting the attention, getting the approval. See, people confuse approval and attention with love, which is not at all the same thing, but it feels good for the moment. And that's how it becomes an addiction. Anything that feels good for the moment can become an addiction.
Amazing. There were so many connections that by going to the 8-week course that actually it was 9 weeks. So there's a bonus there for certain people, right. But going by that, there were certain things that it just like opened my eyes to certain, me as a life coach, certain things that I couldn't understand, or why, as me as a person, why I react a certain way with certain triggers. So right. I want to address a couple of things. You had said the soul within. And one of the teachers that comes in the classroom every month, she has been one of my mentors, is Dr. Lorraine Day. And she says that the word spirit has been rewritten, and or the body, the person, that we are a soul, that our whole spirit, mind, body, that's a soul, that we are souls.
Right.
And so I thought when you said that, the soul within, that I can connect with that. I can resonate with that. And so this next thing that was really a telltale for me, that I was just, wow, this is amazing, was when somebody has a pain or an issue and you were working through their trauma, their drama, whatever it was that was causing them to feel the way they did, you would have them go to the earliest experience of that pain or that body, whatever it was that they were manifesting. And then you said this, that will always be with me. When that person went to that, or any person that you were processing went to that moment, maybe there were 5, maybe there were 3, maybe there were before they were conceived type of thing, you would say to them, that's where you go to when you're triggered. That's where you go to when you're angry or upset. And so let's address that. That was probably one of the most brilliant things I have ever learned from a teacher in the classroom, because I could apply that. We could all apply that to ourselves. My behavior, I could go back to that time, to that place when I was 5 or 4 or 1. And you know what? We all throw tantrums when we're angry, right? So how did that come about? How did you make that connection?
Well, in inner bonding, basically, what we teach, we help people to kind of separate out parts. Eventually, we become integrated, but in order to learn about them, we separate them out. And so what you're talking about is what we call the wounded self.
A wounded self, yes.
Ego wounded self. And that is in the lower part of the left brain. That's the left amygdala. Mm-hmm. And that part is where the fight or flight mechanism is. And that part absorbs false beliefs. So, for example, if you were criticized or hit or rejected in some way when you were 5, maybe at that time you learned to just close your heart and shut down, or you learned to throw a temper tantrum, or you learned to numb out with food. Whatever it is that you learn to do, that gets triggered. That 5-year-old in you that's programmed into your left amygdala gets triggered, and you act out from that place. Now, that may have helped you when you were 5, mm-hmm. but it doesn't help you now. In fact, it hurts you now. And acting out from that wounded self is what creates most of our anxiety, our depression, our guilt, our shame, our anger, our aloneness, emptiness, jealousy, all these very painful feelings. But when we were 5 or 6 or whatever the age is, and somebody was unloving, the deeper pain is what we call the existential pain of life, the heartbreak, the grief, the helplessness over other people's behavior, mm-hmm. the loneliness. These are really deep feelings. And mm-hmm. this is what we felt when we were young, and we couldn't afford to feel it because our bodies were too small to manage those big feelings of being so unloved. And so we had to learn to protect. And we learned in many different ways, with addictions, various ways of acting out, of ignoring, of numbing, of making others responsible, of judging, all these ways we learned. And even though these controlling protective behaviors create feelings like anxiety and depression, they do cover over the deeper feelings that most people have never learned to manage. And part of inner bonding is learning to manage the pain of life. We have to be able to manage that because it's going to be here. We're going to lose people we love. People are going to be angry or rejecting or unloving in various ways. That is going to happen. We need to learn to manage it in loving ways and release it rather than act out as a 5-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 12-year-old or whatever age we learn to protect against that deeper pain.
Amazing. It really is beautiful. Another thing that really, and I talk about in the classroom a lot, which is a connection to a higher power. I find that through your work, that's a must, that connection to a higher power. What happens when people don't have that connection? Because to me, it's a connection to self, connection to a higher power, because right. Me and God are one. God and I are one. And I know that. But when we lose that higher power connection, what are some of the things that can happen to our body? And what are some of the things that you suggest people do if they don't have a higher power or a connection to?
So this is really interesting. One of my friends, I don't know if you know of her, is Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor. And I
want to know her. I want her on my show.
Yeah. So, she wrote the book, My Stroke of Insight, after having that stroke, but she wrote a recent book called Whole Brain Living. And it's so fascinating because I've been talking to her a lot about this. she has identified the exact parts of the brain that are exactly what we talk about in inner bonding. So let me address what you just said.
Yes.
So like I said, the wound itself is in the left lower amygdala. The inner child is in the right lower amygdala. The part of us that connects with spirit, it's our right brain. It's what we call the feminine aspect of the loving adult, open to learning, connecting, bringing in that love and that wisdom. The left brain is what we call in inner bonding, the father aspect, the action aspect in the world. Now, if you think about what's happening in our planet, okay, this higher left brain, in order to take loving action in the world, needs to be informed by the right brain that's connected to a source of love and truth. But if we're not spiritually connected, we don't have access to that. So this action-oriented part gets informed by the lower left brain, by the ego wounded self.
Amazing.
And that action is disastrous, as we can see. It's about greed. It's about control. It'll do anything to get what it wants. And so when the left brain acts out into the world without being informed by the right brain, not only is it going to eventually make you sick, it's going to ruin your relationships. And it's, of course, affecting the entire planet. Our planet is sick because of left brain actions that are not being informed by a spiritually connected, loving adult.
Do you think that that's by design, or do you think that that is the state of our, where we've put our interest in things as opposed to a much higher level of being? Do you feel that that is, like I said, that people are trained not to trust a higher power?
Oh, yeah. They're trained not to because of churches or Senate or whoever, any religion, parents wanting control, teachers wanting control over the child. If the child was connected and trusted themselves, then it would be a whole different story in school and at home.
Absolutely. It became so apparent because, back in, I don't know how long ago it was, I wrote an ebook that people get when they become a subscriber to the classroom at whenyouneedafriend.com. And that's part of what they get. And I wrote an ebook called 90-Day Challenge to Self-Love. And it happened by divine intervention, because I had a psychotherapist in the classroom for 2 years he was a regular for 2 years. And we were about to do a show, because at the time it was a radio show, on depression and anxiety. And that week I was, people kept coming. We were doing a show on self-love. That's what we were talking about. And that week, and that as we were preparing for this, I kept getting email after email, calls, coaching, and all that stuff. And people were depressed and anxious. And so as we were getting ready to do this show, I said to Dr. David Baker Hargrove, I said, I have just been getting so many calls and texts because people are depressed and anxious. And he said, you know what that means? It means they lost their connection to self. And to me, God and I are one. I'm not saying I'm God. I'm not saying I can do things that God can do, but I do know that when Jesus breathed in the nostril of the apostles, he said, you will do this and more. And I always say, what's the this and what's the more? And that to me is the incredible magnitude of a higher power within me, right? So that's what I believe. But when he said that lack of self-love is depression and anxiety manifested, right?
Yeah, that's right. And when you think about people who are not spiritually connected, they feel alone in the universe. They feel lost. They have nowhere to go to for a sense of truth and wisdom and strength. At this point, I don't even know how I could live without that.
Right.
Because I go to that for everything, all day long. I'm saying, well, what's loving to me now? What's in my highest good now? And I just listen and I do it. But so many people are cut off from that. And, one of the reasons that's happening a lot is this is a big issue that I love. I've been studying nutrition for 60 years. And one of the reasons that people are so cut off is because of the food supply, the processed foods, the fast foods, the sugar, all the junk. Actually, it creates a huge problem in the immune system. It disrupts the gut, but then it creates toxicity that goes up into the brain. And so not only does self-abandonment on the emotional level create anxiety and depression, but it also does on the physical level, because when that toxicity goes into the brain, it can create anxiety, depression, or other things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and ADD, ADHD, all kinds of brain issues. And if people want to read about, there's plenty to read about out there about how a disruption in your gut creates the issues in the brain. But when you think that in the last 100 years, that's when this junky food has been there. And that's when people's connection has gone down and down and down. And actually IQs have gone down because of that. Yeah.
It's unfortunate because many parents, and I wish I would have known this when my kids were little. I wish I would have, but I wasn't open to this truth. I wasn't open to new truths. And that would probably be my biggest regret. If I could give anybody advice as a parent in their life, is to be curious about nutrition, to be curious about parenting. And I wanted to do things by the book because I felt that my parents wung it so much that we were like flung across the, I would say my parents were great teachers of what to do and what not to do. But I felt like I was going to do things different than my parents. Like my parents would, like when I would babysit, Dr. Paul, when I would babysit, I was surprised when I gave a kid a cookie, like a cookie jar, and they just would take one cookie. I did not know moderation. And I'm going, are you sure? Don't you want more? No, I'm only allowed one cookie. And I'm like, man, I could have eaten the whole canister. My parents wouldn't have cared. It's those things. And so I became aware of different behaviors and different things, but never was I really open to things that I wasn't ready to learn. So that would be my one thing, is like, be open and curious to those things, because I see I was a sugar addict when I was in my, I would say up to my 30s plus, maybe my 40s. And I tell the story that my husband and I went on a cruise, and in the ship, they had like a New York park. And this guy made me, there was cotton candy. There was something about cotton candy that I would just get really excited about. The guy made me a 5-foot tall cotton candy, and I ate every single morsel of that. I was like a kid in a candy store. And Lord knows if I'm still having the effects of this since 2012, but I'm telling you, if I can give up sugar, anybody can. But it is stronger an addiction than cocaine.
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's a reason for it. And the reason for it is these gut bacteria. This is, like I said, the seat of our immune system. When the good bacteria when there's more good bacteria than bad bacteria, we have health most of the time. But sugar feeds the bad bacteria. And so the more you eat sugar, the more the bad bacteria proliferate and create toxins, and they're addicted to the sugar. They're addicted to the white foods, the wheat, and all that stuff. And so the more you do that, the more you create the addiction, because that bacteria craves the sugar. And that's why it's so hard. It's so hard to get off. I was a sugar addict too in my early 20s.
You want to share?
Oh, yeah. I once sat down and ate a half a box of brown sugar.
What? Just brown sugar? You didn't melt it? You didn't?
No. I just sat there and ate a half a box of brown sugar. And I tell you, if I could, I don't have a gag reflex. So if I had a gag reflex, I would have been bulimic, because I could sit down and do that. But I was a sickly kid and I didn't want to be sick. And I started reading I was 22 when I started reading about health. And that's when I started going off all that, started eating only organic. My health improved greatly. But in my mid 40s, I got really sick again, really sick. My immune system was shutting down and I didn't know why. I was eating so well. Why was I so sick? And that's when inner bonding came in, fortunately. And I finally realized it was from self-abandonment. You can only abandon yourself so long before you make yourself sick, because I was a caretaker. I took care of everybody else's feelings, my husband, my 3 kids, my parents, my clients, everybody's feelings. I was wiped out from it. But that's what you do when you're a caretaker. You do everything for everybody else to try and get them to love you. And of course, they don't. They just take.
They take.
Yeah, they take. And so that's what was making me sick, is just getting more and more and more depleted. And at that time is when I had a big decision to make, because I was so scared that if I started to love myself instead of caretake them, I would lose them. I would find out they didn't really love me. They just loved what I gave them. But I knew if I didn't do that, I was going to die. I was that sick. So I had to make the decision to be willing to be hurt, to be willing to lose people rather than lose me. And in fact, that did happen. I think I shared with you that, I lost my 30-year marriage. 2 of my 3 kids were mad and my parents disowned me. So it was really hard.
Yeah.
But I got my power, I got my health, I got my creativity. I mean, I would do it again, as hard as it was. I would do exactly the same thing, because otherwise I would be dead. And I really wasn't willing to die that young.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard. It takes a lot of courage. It took me a lot of courage to learn to love myself, to truly love myself, not to try and have control over getting other people to do it for me, but to truly take responsibility for my feelings. People think loving themselves is, well, I go and get my nails done, and I have a hot bath, and I eat well, or I exercise. But really, the bottom line of it is taking responsibility emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, organizationally, relationally, taking responsibility for yourself in all of these ways. And because we had so little role modeling when we were growing up, people have no idea how to take emotional responsibility. They might know how to do it physically, they might know how to do it financially, but almost nobody knows how to do it emotionally. Inner bonding teaches you how.
You do. Absolutely. It does. And there's so many things I want to say. One of them is when you said people think that doing their nails and doing that's taking care of yourself, but that's a physical thing. And many of us forget about taking care of ourselves, because some of the things we make up about ourselves is that if I just think of myself first, somehow I'm selfish.
Right.
There is a correlation between self-love and selfish. And could you create a distinction between the two? Because I believe that this is a very important aspect of being able to give the love back to yourself, like the oxygen mask that they talk about in the, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it into your child, but on your child or anybody that needs you to help yourself. Can you elaborate on really understanding self-love?
Yeah. So actually, self-love is the opposite of selfishness, because selfishness is, well, I'm just going to take care of me and I don't care about you. I don't care about the effect my behavior has on you. That's never loving to ourselves, to be uncaring about how we affect others. Selfishness is when we expect other people to give themselves up for us. If you really loved me, you wouldn't do what you want. You would do what I want. That's selfishness. Whereas self-love creates the opposite, because when we're connecting with that higher source of love, when we're bringing love inside of ourselves, when we're attending to our own feelings, first of all, we're not a burden on others. We're making ourselves happy and peaceful and joyful and healthy. We get all filled up with love inside, because that's what happens when we spiritually connect. We have love to share with others rather than always trying to get love, which is selfish. So for example, when you're coming from the narcissistic aspect of the wound
Yeah.
itself.
And I'm seeing a lot of that lately.
Yeah. And so we all have a narcissistic aspect in
Correct.
our self that just wants to take and get. And so, like, I was a caretaker. I was so kind to others and giving and giving and giving and giving. And I thought I was being loving. I didn't know I was being controlling. I didn't know that I had an agenda, which is to get love. And nobody likes to be controlled. And so all my giving did not necessarily feel loving to others because I had an agenda, which was to get them to love me. Well, of course, they felt controlled by that and they resisted that. And so that's a very negative circle. Now,
but you would think that they would love you because you're doing all these wonderful things, but doesn't work out that way, does it?
it does not. It does not work out.
Entitlement takes over.
That's right. Entitled, they become takers. See, I was the caretaker, they became takers. And that's, first of all, that's not good parenting at all. And that's my big regret. I wish I had known inner bonding from the time my kids were born.
Yeah, I wish you did. I wish you did, because I would have
Hey, no, I fed them well. They were on organic food and everything, but I knew nothing about truly loving.
Yeah.
Which is being a role model. The best thing we can give our kids is to role model taking responsibility for our own pain and our own joy. I mean, I would have given anything if my mother would have taken responsibility for her feelings and showed me how to do that. She was not a happy person because she had no idea. She was miserable. She was angry. She was a narcissist. Now, I would have loved her to be happy and show me how to do it. And that's what a good parent does. Good parent takes responsibility for learning to love themselves so that not only can they share their love with their kids and their partner and others, but they can role model it. What a gift that is for kids.
It absolutely is. So as we give ourselves this love, because we take, and I do a workshop, it's called I Am the Solution. It's the New Truth series, I Am the Solution, and the I Am is the God in us. So it is a Christian-based workshop to be reconnected with the God in you so that the two of the God and I can do all things with the solution. So the solution is an acronym. So I just did this, and we're talking about, the importance of a higher power, the importance of taking ownership for our life. But many people, they do continuing, because I call this continuing education for the soul. So many people need continuing education, but it's for the careers, for doing different things, but very seldom do they do continuing education for our soul. And that's what I feel inner bonding, my work that I do as well, inner bonding is continuing education for the soul. How do you, and I know that we can't make anybody be open or ready, or whenever the student is ready, the teacher appears. But what are some tips that you can have people go, that's maybe me? What are some signs, some symptoms that people express or show or do when they aren't taking care of themselves?
So in inner bonding, first of all, there's only two intentions. One is the intention to learn to love yourself, and the other is the intention to have control over getting love and avoiding pain. So
love or control, right? Okay.
Yeah, love or control. And so one of the things I help people do is learn to notice the difference between how they feel when their intention is to control and when their intention is to be loving to themselves and others. So many of our feelings, what I call the wounded feelings, anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, anger, aloneness, emptiness, jealousy, all of these let you know that you are abandoning yourself. That's how you know, which is by those feelings. That's your inner child. That's your soul saying, hey, you've put this ego wounded self in charge of me. You've put this 5-year-old or 10-year-old or adolescent in charge of me, who's hurting me, who's ignoring me, who's judging me, who's zoned out on various addictions, who's blaming other people. And that's making me scared, anxious, depressed, because you're not loving me. You're putting this wounded self in charge of me. When we feel peace inside, when we feel a fullness inside, and that fullness comes from our spiritual connection. We don't manufacture love. We don't manufacture compassion. We open to it and allow it in. So when our hearts are open, when our intention is to learn about loving ourselves and sharing our love with others, our heart opens automatically and closes automatically when the intention is to control, but automatically opens when our intention is to love, and spirit brings love in. And that creates a fullness and a sense of peace inside, even when there's challenges. And so we know by how we feel whether we're loving ourselves or abandoning ourselves.
Mhm.
And that's why step one of inner bonding is getting present in your body with your feelings. So that took me time to learn, because I was external. I was focused on everybody else's feelings. I had no idea what I felt about anything when I started inner bonding. But now I live in my body, and I know the moment I'm feeling anything other than peace inside, so I can attend to it. So I can see, oh, is my wounded self telling me something? Like, one of the things that can create a lack of peace for me at this point in my life is time pressure.
Mhm.
Now, I do a lot. And so sometimes, you can get overwhelmed when there's a lot hitting you all at once,
Yes.
and you have a sensitive nervous system like I do.
Mhm.
I can get, oh my God, I've got too much to do. So the wounded part of me will put pressure on me. You've got too much to do. You got to do this. You got to do that. And that will create stress. And what I need to do is, at the moment I'm aware of that, is I breathe into it and I hear that voice and I say, honey, you need to quiet down. We always get things done. We will have enough time. You don't know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Settle down.
Mhm.
And then I can get back into peace and just do what I need to do. But it's a matter of being aware. I am aware when that stress comes up, and I can do something about it because I know it's coming. It's too easy to think it's coming from the external environment. Oh, people are telling me I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to get this done. I got to get that done. But it's not. It's coming from that amygdala, that lower left amygdala, who's saying, you got to accomplish, you got to get it done, you got to be on time, and pushing. That creates stress. So for me at this point, that's the main thing that I need. I've dealt with so many of the other false beliefs, but that one I still have to deal with at times.
Mm.
And I do.
Yeah.
And I pay attention. I say, settle down, be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. And then I get back into peace and I get things done.
I love it. I love it. You talked about trauma because, there's a lot of people, especially the people that I've coached. And I can say that there are people that are ready and open and want to explore deep within themselves. But there are other
Right.
people that think that they're coming to me because somebody else has the power over them. Somebody else is controlling them,
Right.
or somebody else is the reason why their life is the way their life is. But they'll say, oh, I had a happy childhood. My life was great. So it wasn't a trauma. It may be something they made up about themselves, right? It could be
No,
that,
no.
no? Okay,
No,
what's going on?
usually what it is that even if they had parents who were very loving to them, they didn't necessarily have parents who were loving to themselves. And
So they learned the behavior?
they had no role modeling. They're treating
Ah,
themselves the way their parents treated themselves.
oh my
Not the
gosh.
way, not the way their parents treated them, but the way their parents treated themselves.
Wow. Isn't it amazing how we absorb everything? I
Yes.
remember interviewing Dr. Bruce Lipton,
Yeah.
and learning about the epigenetics, the mind, and how we absorb
Right.
things and how we make up things about ourselves because we don't understand what's
Right.
really happening, and we're thinking like a child. And then we bring this child into our adult life for the rest of
Right.
our life. But isn't it freeing? Wasn't it freeing to you to realize that you had the power, that within you lied the power to release all of this, that you were
Oh,
able
yeah.
to, oh my gosh, that is invaluable.
Yeah, because I was trained mostly by my mom, was somewhat by my dad, but my mom was a angry narcissist. So that voice, her voice, is in the lower left part of my brain that says, what's the matter with you? Why did you do that? Don't be ridiculous. You don't know what you're talking about. You're too young. I mean, just diminishing. I was a really good student, but my mother said, you don't have to work so hard. I wasn't even working hard. She just couldn't see me. And so it was pushing me down, pushing me down. Well, that wounded part absorbed that voice, you see. And so many people have a voice that says, you're not good enough. What's the matter with you? Who do you think you are? And so, if they were treated that way, or they might have absorbed it because that's what their parents were doing to themselves. They were drinking too much. They were giving themselves up. They were angry. But in many ways, abandoning themselves. And that's what we learn to do.
Okay.
But as we become aware of it, we can develop our higher brain. This is what inner bonding does. It develops new neural pathways in your higher brain so that you're not operating out of this wounded part, so that you're operating as a loving adult, connected to your higher guidance, connected to that wisdom, taking action in the world based on that wisdom, and nurturing the soul within you.
Okay, this is just, I mean, I'm ready to do another week with Dr. Margaret Paul. Aren't you guys? Okay, so before we talk about the 6 steps to inner bonding, I want to encourage all of you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where we take 100% responsibility. That word responsibility that we're talking about is ownership, not blame, shame, fault, or duty, which is the opposite of what I talk about when we're taking responsibility, because responsibility, the way I talk about it, leads to empowerment and freedom.
Right.
And so this is where we go. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com while there. Please like and follow and subscribe. And when you subscribe, you get my 90-day challenge to self-love ebook. I'll tell you about Dr. Paul's self-help book course that she does. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But right now I need for you to like and follow, especially my account that I'm trying to migrate all my accounts to BitChute and Odyssey. But we're still very much going on Facebook and YouTube. But this work that I'm doing, this information that we're sharing out in the world, somehow is getting censored. So we need to go to platforms where they're uncensoring what we're talking about. None of this empowerment stuff. This is really, no, we need to depend on everybody else. And it's like we're being indoctrinated to be narcissistic. That is my opinion and my opinion only. So while you are at whenyouneedafriend.com, please check out my sponsor, Dr. Jennifer Gramuth. And I am just so excited when she comes on to the classroom and to share how you could take responsibility for your health as well. And then you could go to my affiliate sponsors. Please check out some of these affiliates because they help grow the classroom. And their products, they're all approved by me. These are products that I use. And so please figure out ways that you can support my sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. Finally, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 to donate or $1,000 to donate a month, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever you can do to help grow the classroom. I greatly appreciate it. Now, finally, Dr. Paul, you can go to Inner Bonding because Dr. Paul has Love Yourself course. Also the 8-week course for Inner Bonding that I just took back in June of 2021. That's going to be available for you guys to watch as well. So stay tuned. Email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com and I'll send you the link once Dr. Paul tells me when it's available. But it's innerbonding.com. You can, if you are a subscriber, you have all her information. All you have to do is click on her name or click on the hyperlink and it will take you straight there. Dr. Paul, I am so excited that you created this work. I'm sorry how it came about, but like in the Bible, Joseph said to his brothers that sold them into slavery many years ago. For those of you who don't know the story of Joseph, the son of Jacob, in the Bible, it is a beautiful, beautiful story. But he said he said this, what you intended for harm, what his brothers intended for harm, God intended for good.
Right.
To me, Romans 8 is one of the, that's not Romans 8, that's in Genesis, the quote from Joseph. But Romans 8 promises that good things will come to all who love him. And so the reason I'm sharing this is that what happened to Dr. Paul And what's happened to me in my life and what's happened to you, even though maybe we viewed it as harmful, it is intended for good.
Right.
And so I love the fact that you took what was harmful in your life and you've turned it into what's good for you and all. You have created this incredible process along with Erica Chopik, who has just been together your friend and you're just created such a wonderful tool for all of us to use. So I want to thank you for being attuned and aware of how what you needed is what we needed to.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I feel very blessed. I don't look back on the problems in my life as, oh my God, I wish that hadn't happened. I look at it as a gift because I wouldn't be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said, God meant it for good.
Mm-hmm.
And when we open to the learning about what we're here to learn, then we're guided into what's in our highest good.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So before we go, because we only have about five to 10 minutes left. I don't know. I have to check with Robert. Just let me know how much time we have left, Robert. But can we go through the 6 steps of inner bonding? You had mentioned the first one, which is becoming aware and being present
Right.
within yourself.
Yeah, I can go through them really quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
First step is getting present in your body, being aware of your feelings and wanting responsibility for them. And step 2 is getting into your heart and opening to learning. Being sure, step 2, we're creating the loving adult by opening to learning and opening to our higher spiritual connection, bringing that love and compassion of our higher soul into our heart. Mm-hmm. Step 3 is a dialogue process where we want to know what we're doing. What am I doing that's making you anxious or depressed? How am I treating you that's causing you some pain right now? Or what's happening with another person or situation? So we go in and we dialogue. And if we find out, for example, that we're judging ourselves or we're numbing out with an addiction, we go deeper into that wounded part of ourselves to find out what's the belief. Like, oh, if I judge myself, I'll get myself to do everything right, and then I'll have control over other people liking me. So that's a big false belief that a lot of people have. Mm-hmm. I can judge myself into getting myself to be right in the world, and then everybody will like me. See? So those are the beliefs we want to come into contact with. And once we understand what we're doing and what our false beliefs are, why we're doing it, step 4 is going again to our higher guidance and asking what's the truth about any of the false beliefs and what's loving to us. That's where we find out what's loving, what's in our highest good. Step 5 is taking the action of what's loving to us. And step 6 is going inside and evaluating, how am I feeling now? If I was anxious, am I feeling calmer? If I was depressed, do I feel lighter? We're going to feel some relief when we take a loving action. And of course, the more we do this throughout a day and the more loving actions we take, the better and better we're going to feel.
Yeah. So back in May, Dr. Paul was in the classroom, and you can check out, she goes into a lot more detail for the 6 steps for inner bonding. So, and she also, I think you imitate what to do, or maybe I'm thinking about the 8-week course, but it's important to get a teddy bear or something you can hug, because I love, explain about the loving adult, a little bit more about the loving adult before we go.
Yeah. So the loving adult is who we are when we're truly open to learning. We've shifted our intention from trying to control and protect and avoid pain to, I want to learn to love myself and others. That's who the adult is. And we're connected to our higher source because we don't know what's loving. Think there's no role modeling in our world about how to love ourselves. So we have to be open to our higher power in order to learn to love ourselves. And that's who we are when we're an adult. We've consciously decided on the intention to learn. We've consciously opened and brought in the love and compassion of spirit into our heart. We can't learn unless we're a loving adult. We're not going to take loving action unless we're a loving adult. And what, like I said, we want to be developing these new neural pathways in the prefrontal cortex, which is where the loving adult is. The like I said, the feminine aspect, the mother aspect is in the higher right brain. The father aspect, the action oriented, is in the left brain. We want to develop those neural pathways in both sides of our higher brain.
If somebody's saying right now, that works for you, it won't work for me, what would you say to them?
Try it and see. It works for everybody. There's no such thing as inner bonding not working if you do it. There's no possibility that it does not work if you do it.
Okay, then the next question I have, how it, like I said, it's my opinion that somehow it's like we're becoming more and more narcissistic. It's about me, 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 me. So one of the questions that you ask, what's kind for me right now? What's to my best interest right now? That is a question that you're asking a higher power, God. For me, it would be God. What is in my best interest? What others may be intending for harm? How can it become for good? Is that basically what you mean? You're not saying me, 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 me. You're saying what?
Well, I'm saying what loving action do I have to take for myself? Do I have to hold my feelings? Do I have to explore what I'm doing? Do I need to apologize to somebody? Do I need to get some exercise? Do I need to eat better? Do I need to change jobs? It's not about, oh, I just got to get as much as I can. I don't care about you. It's not that at all. It's like if you have a baby who's crying, what do you want to do to take care of the child? You want to find out, what does the child need? And that's what we're doing on the inner level. What do we need on the inner level to feel full, to feel peaceful, to feel joyful, to feel loving, so that we can share love? The goal is being able to share love with each other. The goal is being able to experience our oneness with each other, because our soul is magnificent, and part of inner bonding is learning to know who we are in our soul. And when we really get that through information from our higher power, we get to see the souls of others. It's very easy to see who others are when we see who we are, and to care and love who they are in their soul. And frankly, this is what needs to happen on our planet. We need to be able to feel the oneness, because all of our souls, like are a spark of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see each other like that, we can't harm each other. There's no way we can harm each other when we see each other's soul.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I want to, if you were looking to develop your inner, your trust and your guidance, and I just want to take you to my little Shop Now bag. We have the book, New Truth series, Book of Revelation, Bible study. It's a 12-week course with Dr. Lorraine Day. We're now completing up the 100 plus lessons from the Exodus. Talk about trusting God with the Exodus. So check them out. See if you want an online course. We also have the DVD that you can purchase as well. It really does span, it does come down to, how much do you trust God? How much do we know that how, and I'll say we have viewers from all over the world. And so what somebody might call God, somebody else might call higher power. I'm not here for the outcome. I'm here for the direct, to say, be curious about this higher power, because every breath we take was created. I was sitting outside with Robert. We live by the water, and there were some dolphins out, and I said, and to think that people think that we all came from the same amoeba, it's like, I don't look like a dolphin, but somehow we all came from the same amoeba, and we are created. So I think we need to be curious about that, and be open to learn some new truths. And Dr. Margaret Paul, I am so grateful that I stumbled upon you back in 2014, 2015. I can't remember, but it was a while ago, and how much your work has meant for me then, and how much more it means to me now, not only as a self-cleaning oven, which I call myself, but also the people who go through my course become self-cleaning ovens too, but also, the work that you've done to connect not only with a higher power, but to see yourself within that place and so thank you so much for what you do. I cannot thank you deeper than I have. And so I think I'm going to have to create another week with Dr. Paul.
Well, thank you so much, Lillian, for letting me share this, because I love to share it. And I do hope that people go on to innerbonding.com. There's a free course there that they can start with.
That's right. There's a free course. Go check it out. Just click on the links that I have in my blog, or you can go to Inner Bonding yourself. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Today we don't have the classroom because or the teacher's pet section, but I want to encourage you that if you have any questions, ask them, and I'll probably talk to Dr. Paul, see if she can help me with that as well. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Margaret Paul wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
Super.
Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.